Welcome to the QuickPro camera guide for the Canon 70D. This guide is meant to be a study tool to be used in connection with and not a replacement of your camera's owner's manual. The 70D is a great camera that will capture amazing images as well as HD video. Throughout this guide, you will occasionally see symbols at the lower part of your screen. This symbol will be shown when a warning about using the camera is being given. When this symbol is displayed, a helpful tip will be given. Let's get started. Your 70D has many sophisticated buttons and dials, and to take the best pictures with your camera, you'll want to be familiar with the functions of each of them. Let's begin by taking a closer look at many of the camera's features. Let's first take a look at the top of the camera. First, there is the power switch and the mode dial. To select a shooting mode, press and hold the mode dial lock release while rotating the mode dial. This section of the mode dial has the basic zone modes. In these modes, the camera will do all the work for you. All you have to do is point and shoot. These modes include Scene Intelligent Auto, Flash Off, and Creative Auto modes. There is also a special scene mode. To access the modes that are available within the special scene mode, press the quick control button and press the set button to select the scene mode. Here you can use either the multi-controller or the quick control dial to choose from portrait, landscape, close-up, sports, night portrait, handheld night scene, or HDR backlight control. This section of the mode dial has the creative zones. When you use the creative zones, you'll choose many of the camera settings. These zones are more advanced, but with a little practice, they can produce amazing results. The creative zone modes include program auto exposure, shutter priority, aperture priority, manual, and bulb. The 70D also has a custom shooting mode, which will allow you to register specific shooting settings to that mode so they can be quickly and easily recalled. This is the hot shoe, where you can attach a variety of external flash units. On the sides of the hot shoe, there is the stereo microphone, which records sound in the camera's movie mode. This is the built-in flash, which will provide extra light in low light conditions. This is the AF mode selection button. To select the AF mode, press this button and rotate either the main dial or the quick control dial. This is the drive mode selection button, which will allow you to choose how many images are captured while the shutter button is pressed completely. After the button has been pressed, use the main dial, multi-controller, or quick control dial to select the drive mode. This is the ISO button, which will allow you to select the ISO setting. This is the metering mode selection button, which will allow you to select the metering mode. This is the LCD panel illumination button. Pressing this button will illuminate this LCD panel. This is the LCD panel, which allows you to access and change many of the camera's settings. This is the main dial. It's used independently and in conjunction with many camera buttons to adjust camera settings. And this is the shutter button. To take a picture, simply press the button halfway down to allow the camera to focus, and then press it the rest of the way to take the picture. This is the AF area selection mode button. To select an AF area selection mode, simply press the button to toggle through the options. Let's take a look at this side of the camera. This is the flash button. The flash will pop up automatically in several of the basic zones, and you can press the flash button to make the flash pop up in the creative zones. Here we'll find the lens release button. To attach a lens, make sure the camera is switched to off, hold the camera with one hand and the lens with the other like this. Align the lens index with the camera's index of the same color. Then gently rotate the lens until it clicks into place. Take great care not to scratch the lens by allowing it to make contact with anything. When you need to clean your lens, it's a good idea to use a lens cloth. Other fabrics can dull or scratch your lens. When you want to detach a lens, press the lens release button while holding the camera with the same hand. Then with the other hand, rotate the lens until it uncouples. Avoid changing lenses in windy or dusty conditions. This will help the image sensor stay clean and free of dust. These are the terminal covers, which will allow you to connect the camera to a variety of other devices, including an external microphone for movie recording, an optional remote control, an HD TV, or a computer, compatible printer, or standard definition TV. On this side of the camera, there is the depth of field preview button. You can press and hold this button while looking through the viewfinder to see the effect of the aperture setting before you take the picture. This is the red eye reduction self-timer lamp, and this is the remote control sensor. Here we'll find the memory card slot cover. When you're inserting a memory card, you'll want to make sure that the manufacturer's logo is facing the back of the camera. Simply insert the card until it clicks into place and close the card slot cover. Before you start taking pictures with a new memory card, it's a good idea to format it. Also, keep in mind that your camera will operate faster if you periodically format your memory card, rather than simply deleting images from it to free up space for more picture taking. Make sure that you don't format your card unless you've already copied the images that you want to save to your computer. Formatting your card will erase all the images. To format the SD memory card, press the menu button. Next, you have to use the multi-controller or the touch screen to select the first setup menu. Select Format Card and select OK. Now let's take a look at the back of the camera. The most prominent feature is the fully articulated 3-inch LCD touchscreen monitor. When rotating or tilting the LCD monitor, note that it will pivot, tilt, and rotate in specific directions, and forcing the monitor in a direction other than intended may cause damage. This sophisticated monitor can be controlled using the camera's buttons and dials, and almost all of the functions can also be controlled using the touchscreen. In this guide, we'll discuss using the controls primarily with the buttons and dials. This monitor serves several purposes. First, it displays images that have been taken. Using the camera's multi-controller or quick control dial, you can scroll through the images on the memory card. You can also simply swipe the touch screen to scroll through the images. Second, when the quick control button is pressed, the LCD monitor provides fast and easy access to several of the camera's settings in the quick control screen. Third, when the menu button is pressed, the LCD monitor displays the camera's menu system, where you can change many important settings in the camera. Finally, when the Live View Movie Shooting Start-Stop button is pressed, the LCD monitor provides a live view of the scene. Directly above the LCD monitor is the viewfinder, where you can see camera settings when you're taking pictures. Before you start taking pictures, you'll want to focus the viewfinder. To do this, use the dioptric adjustment knob located to the right of the eye cup. Rotate the dial until the automatic focus points in the viewfinder are in sharp focus. At the bottom of the viewfinder display, you can see the battery indicator, shutter speed, aperture and ISO settings, as well as the exposure meter in creative zone modes and the maximum burst, or the number of photos that you can take without waiting for the camera to catch up, and the focus confirmation light. Over the scene, you will see the camera's focus points. When the shutter button is pressed halfway to focus, the areas where the focus points blink in red will be in focus. This is the menu button, which provides access to the camera's menu system. And this is the info button. In the camera's shooting, playback, and live view modes, pressing this button will display helpful information. We'll discuss more about the camera's display settings later in this guide. This is the Live View Movie Shooting switch and the Start-Stop button. When the switch is set to Live View, you can press the Start-Stop button to use the camera's Live View feature. When the switch is set to Movie, pressing this button will start and end movie recording. This is the AF On button. Just as pressing the shutter button halfway down, you can press and hold this button to use autofocus in the camera's creative zone modes. This button has two functions. First, it is the AE Lock button. When the shutter button is pressed and held halfway down, you can press the AE lock button to lock the exposure while you recompose the image. This button also serves as the index reduce button in the camera's playback mode. This button also serves two functions. First, it is the AF point selection button. Pressing this button will allow you to select the AF point you'd like to use. This button is also the magnify button in the camera's playback mode. This is the memory card access lamp, which indicates that the memory card is being read or written to. When this lamp is lit, do not open the card slot cover or remove the battery. This is the quick control button, which will allow you to access the camera's quick control screen. The quick control screen is where you can adjust camera settings to gain access to the camera's settings when you're using one of the camera's shooting modes. After you have pressed the quick control button, you can use the multi-controller to navigate to different camera settings. To change a setting, you can simply rotate either the main dial or the quick control dial. Or you can press the set button to view the options. Note that you can also use the touch screen to access the settings in the quick control screen. We'll discuss the quick control screen in greater detail later in this guide. This is the playback button, which will allow you to view images on the memory card. As we've discussed, this is the quick control dial, which allows you to adjust many camera settings as well as navigate through displays and menus. This is the multi-controller, which allows you to navigate the menu system, scroll through images in playback, and access information in the shooting settings display. Below the multi-controller, you'll find the erase button, which you can use to erase images from the memory card. This is the multi-function lock switch. When it is set to lock, the main dial, quick control dial, and the multi-controller will be locked from making changes inadvertently. Your 70D has a variety of image quality and size settings that will allow you to capture images with resolution, file format, and compression that you need for your scenario. Let's first take a moment to talk about the camera's image quality and image size options. Your Canon 70D can record image files in two different image quality settings or file types, RAW and JPEG. First, there is the RAW file format. RAW files are not actually image files. They are actually the raw data saved to the memory card directly from the image sensor. This means that RAW files must be processed on the computer before they're printed. Next, RAW file sizes are considerably larger than JPEG files. RAW files have a much broader range of tones. Shadow and highlight areas have more detail than other image files, and you can extensively edit RAW files without losing image data. The other image quality setting on the 70D is JPEG. JPEG files are a standard compressed file format that is supported by any image software. Because JPEG files are compressed, the file sizes are very small compared to RAW files, but they have a much narrower range of tones and will lose some image data each time they're saved. Let's take a look at how to select the image quality settings on the 70D. The image quality options are accessed in the camera's menu system under the First Shooting tab. Here you can use the main dial to select the RAW quality setting and the quick control dial or multi-controller to select the JPEG quality setting. There are three different RAW options: RAW, medium RAW, and small RAW. The difference between the different RAW options is the resolution. The first RAW option will use all 20 megapixels to record images. The medium RAW option will use 11 megapixels, and the small RAW option will use 5 megapixels. Below the RAW options, there are the JPEG options. You'll notice that for each of the large, medium, and small quality settings, there are different settings. This icon represents the fine quality JPEG setting, which is a higher quality with less compression. This icon represents a normal quality JPEG with more compression. Both formats will use the same number of megapixels to record the image. The only difference is the compression of the file. The large JPEG option will record images using all 20 megapixels. The medium JPEG option will use 8.9 megapixels, and the small 1 option will use 5 megapixels. There are also S2 and S3 options. The S2 setting records images at 2.5 megapixels and is good for playing the images on a digital photo frame, and the S3 setting records images at 0.3 megapixels and is good for email and posting the images online. The camera will record whichever combination of RAW and JPEG files you have selected. So if you select medium RAW for the RAW setting and large normal quality for the JPEG setting, the camera will record one 11 megapixel RAW file as well as one normal quality large JPEG file each time a picture is taken. If you select the dash for either setting, the camera will not record an image in that file format. For all of the image quality settings, the camera will show you the number of megapixels that the camera will use to record the photo, the pixel count, and the number of shots you'll be able to fit on the memory card with that image quality setting. One of the most important concepts in photography is exposure, or the amount of light that falls on the camera's image sensor or film. A properly exposed photo will have good detail in the shadow, midtone, and highlight areas. Photos that are too bright are overexposed, and photos that are too dark are underexposed. There are 4 ways that your 70D measures light. These are the camera's metering modes. The camera's metering modes can be changed in the creative zones only. To access the camera's metering modes, simply press the metering mode button and make your selection. The first metering mode is called evaluative metering. This is a great general use metering mode that can be used in most shooting scenarios. When this mode is selected, the camera will divide the scene into zones. Then the camera measures the shadows and highlights in each zone and averages all of the zones. Then the camera uses the average to set the exposure automatically to suit the scene. This is a good mode to use for many situations, but sometimes when the scene is very bright or very dark, you may want to use a different metering mode. The next mode is partial metering. This is effective when the background is much brighter than the subject due to backlighting. Partial metering covers about 9% of the viewfinder area at the center. Spot metering is for metering a specific part of the subject or scene. The metering is weighted at the center, covering about 3.8% of the viewfinder area. The next mode is center-weighted average metering. Center-weighted average functions much like evaluative metering, with zones being evaluated and averaged. But with center-weighted metering, the zones that are in the center area of the frame are given the greatest weight. The zones that are outside of the center area of the frame are taken into account as well, but these zones are given much less priority when determining the exposure. Center-weighted metering is a classic mode used for portraits. Now that you know a little about how your camera sees and measures light to create properly exposed photos, let's talk a little about the shooting modes on the 70D. To select a shooting mode, press and hold the mode dial lock release while rotating the mode dial. With the Scene Intelligent Auto, Flash Off, Creative Auto, and Special Scene modes, the camera chooses everything for you. All you'll need to do is point and shoot. First, there is the Scene Intelligent Auto mode. With this mode, the camera will quickly assess the scene and set the best settings automatically. To take a picture in this mode, simply press the shutter button halfway to allow the camera to focus. The focus point or points that achieve focus will blink in red in the viewfinder and green in live view. If needed, the flash will pop up automatically. Then simply press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture. The next mode is Flash Off. This mode functions in the same way as the auto mode, except that the flash is disabled. Use this mode in places where flash photography is prohibited or inappropriate. This mode is also good to use for candlelight scenes or if you want to create streaks of light for creative effect. The next mode is Creative Auto. This is a similar mode to Scene Intelligent Auto, but with this mode, you'll have control over the depth of field, drive mode, and flash. To access and change the settings for the Creative Auto mode, make sure the mode dial is set to CA and then press the Quick Control button. At the top of the screen, you can select the ambient setting. We'll discuss more about ambient settings later in this guide. You can also adjust the level of background blur or depth of field. And below that, there are settings for the drive mode and the flash mode. Now let's look at the special scene modes. To access the special scene modes, make sure that the mode dial is set to special scene. Then press the Quick Control button. To select the mode you'd like, rotate the main dial or the Quick Control dial. When any of the special scene modes are selected, you can adjust several camera settings by pressing the Quick Control button. Just as with the Creative Auto mode, the first setting you can adjust is the ambient setting. Below that, you can also choose a setting to match the type of light or scene that you're shooting in. And at the bottom of the screen, you can choose from the available drive modes for that mode. The first special scene mode is the portrait mode. Use this mode when you want the subject to be in focus and what is behind the subject to have a soft focus. The next mode is the landscape mode. Use this mode when you want everything in the foreground and background to be in sharp focus. The camera will then adjust the shutter speed to get the proper exposure. In this setting, the shutter speed can get pretty slow, so be sure to steady your camera or use a tripod to avoid camera shake. Next, there is the close-up mode, which is great for photographing small objects. Use this mode at the lens's minimum focusing distance. The next mode is the sports mode, which is great for capturing fast-moving subjects. Note that this mode works best outdoors with plenty of light. Next, there is the night portrait mode. This mode is designed to capture your subject and obtain a natural-looking exposure in the background. In order for the subject to be well lit, the flash will fire. Hold the camera very still or support it with a tripod. The next mode is the handheld night scene mode. With this mode, the camera will take 4 shots at very high speed and combine them in camera to produce an image with minimized blur due to camera shake. When you're using this mode, hold the camera very steady while the 4 shots are being taken. The last special scene mode on the 70D is the HDR backlight control. With this mode, the camera will capture 3 shots at high speed and combine them to create a final image with improved detail in shadow and highlight areas. This is a great mode to use when you're taking pictures with bright light shining behind the subject. Now let's take a look at the more advanced shooting modes on the 70D. The first mode is called Program Auto Exposure and is represented with a P on the mode dial. In this mode, the camera automatically adjusts shutter speed and aperture for optimal exposure, but you can change the aperture and shutter speed combinations to suit your needs. Within the Program AE mode, you will also have full control over the camera's focus mode, drive mode, white balance, and flash settings. To operate in this mode, rotate the mode dial to P. You can monitor the aperture and shutter speed in the viewfinder or on the shooting functions display. If you would like to change the aperture and shutter speed combination, rotate the main dial. Then simply press the shutter button halfway to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. If the image appears too bright or too dark, you can adjust the exposure compensation. To do this, press the Quick Control button and select the exposure compensation scale. Here, you can rotate the Quick Control dial to adjust the overall brightness. Values toward the minus side of the scale will make the image darker, and values toward the plus side of the scale will make the image brighter. After you have made your selection, simply take the picture. When you're finished using the exposure compensation, you'll want to set the indicator back to 0. Note that exposure compensation also works with the shutter priority and aperture priority modes. The next setting on the mode dial is the TV or shutter priority mode. The TV stands for time value. The shutter priority mode is useful for times when you want to control motion in a scene, whether it's freezing action or blurring the motion of the subject. In this mode, you will set the shutter speed and the camera will automatically select an aperture value. To use the camera in shutter priority mode, set the mode dial to TV. Rotate the main dial to select the shutter speed. To set the shutter speed with the touch screen, touch the shutter speed setting. You can swipe your finger to select any shutter speed value. Now simply press the shutter button halfway to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. The next shooting mode is the AV, or Aperture Priority Mode. The Aperture Priority Mode is useful for times when you want to control the depth of field in an image. Depth of field is the term used to describe the distance between the nearest and farthest objects in a scene that appear acceptably sharp in an image. When only a small area or subject in an image is in focus, it's said to have a shallow depth of field. This is achieved by using a smaller f-stop number. When everything in both the foreground and background is in focus, an image is said to have a long depth of field. For a long depth of field, choose a large f-stop number. When you're shooting in Aperture Priority Mode, you'll set the aperture and the camera will automatically select the correct shutter speed for proper exposure. To use this mode, select AV on the mode dial. To select an aperture value, rotate the main dial. Note that you can also use the touch screen to select the aperture value. Once you have made your selection, press the shutter button halfway to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. The next shooting mode is Manual Mode. This mode gives you complete control of the camera. In Manual Mode, you will set both the shutter speed and aperture to create the exposure. To operate the camera in Manual Mode, select M on the mode dial. To set the shutter speed, rotate the main dial. To set the aperture, rotate the quick control dial. To select the shutter speed and aperture with the touch screen, simply touch the setting you'd like to adjust and swipe to make your selection. You can also use the on-screen arrow buttons at the top of the screen. Now press the shutter button halfway so that as you're making adjustments to the aperture and shutter speed, you can watch the exposure scale either on the LCD monitor or through the viewfinder. When the exposure level indicator is near the center of the scale, the image should be properly exposed. You can choose just the right aperture and shutter speed combinations for your scene, whether you want to freeze action or create a very shallow depth of field. Make the necessary adjustments to the aperture and shutter speed and press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way down to take the picture. In addition to aperture and shutter speed, the camera's ISO setting will have a significant impact on whether your images are properly exposed. The ISO sets the image sensor's sensitivity to light. The higher the number, the less light that is required to properly expose the image sensor. You can either have the camera automatically choose the sensitivity or you can set it manually. To set the ISO on the 70D, press the ISO button and then set the ISO by rotating the main dial or the quick control dial while watching the LCD monitor. You can also set the ISO using the quick control button and the multi-controller, or you can use the touch screen. You can select ISO Auto, or you can also choose from ISOs ranging from 100 to 12,800. When the camera is set to use ISO Auto, it will automatically select an appropriate ISO setting. But the great thing about Auto ISO on the 70D is that it works in conjunction with a selected minimum shutter speed that you can set according to your scenario. The Auto ISO options are accessed in the third shooting menu under ISO Speed Settings. Here you can simply select the ISO setting and you can set the ISO speed range. Here select the minimum or the maximum option and press Set. Then use the multi-controller to make adjustments to the settings. You can set the minimum and the maximum that you'd like the camera to allow to be selected. This is also where you can set the camera to allow an expanded ISO setting, such as high settings for the maximum. Once you have made your selections, highlight OK and press Set. This menu is also where you can set the controls for the Auto ISO options. First, you can set the Auto ISO range. Again, you can select your minimum and maximum settings that you'd like the camera to use. Now you can set the minimum shutter speed. You can select Auto, or you can choose any other shutter speed you'd like. This setting will set the slowest shutter speed that the camera will use. If the shutter speed drops slower than what you have selected here, the camera will increase the ISO to keep the shutter speed at the minimum that you have selected. The 70D also has an ISO feature that is great for capturing images with very little noise in low light situations. This feature is called multi-shot noise reduction. When enabled, multi-shot noise reduction will capture 4 images at very high speed and combine them to create a final image with reduced digital noise. To set up your camera to use multi-shot noise reduction, enter the camera's menu system and navigate to the 4th shooting menu. Here, select High ISO Speed Noise Reduction, then Multi-Shot Noise Reduction. Now press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. In this mode, it's important to hold the camera steady while it captures all 4 images. The camera will process the images to create a final image with significantly reduced digital noise. It's a good idea to set the ISO speed to suit the ambient light setting that you're shooting in. When you increase the ISO speed to a higher number for low light, a faster shutter speed can be used to avoid blurry images. The image sensor on your camera is very powerful. It will allow you to use a very high ISO setting and still have great images. Keep in mind, however, that some very high ISO settings will introduce digital noise or grain in your images. You'll want to experiment with the camera's ISO settings to become familiar with their range and control. Here's a guide that will help you have a basic idea of what ISO setting to use in various situations. When you're outdoors in full sun, use ISO 100 to 200. In the shade, on an overcast day, or indoors with lots of window light, use ISO 400. ISOs 800 and higher should be used indoors for action shots or in other low light conditions. Now that we've discussed shooting modes and ISO settings, let's take a minute to talk about the camera's drive modes. The drive modes determine how many times the shutter releases when you press the shutter button. To set the drive mode, simply press the drive mode button and then use the multi-controller or touch screen to make your selection. In single shooting drive mode, 1 picture will be taken when you press the shutter button completely. This is a good mode for stationary subjects. The high-speed continuous drive mode will record up to 7 images per second while the shutter button is pressed down completely. And the low-speed continuous drive mode will record up to 3 images per second while the shutter button is pressed down completely. The silent single shooting and silent continuous shooting drive modes function in the same way as the single shooting drive mode and low-speed continuous drive modes, except that they keep sound to a minimum, making them great for use in quiet surroundings. The 10-second self-timer remote control drive mode will take the picture 10 seconds after the shutter button has been pressed completely. Use this drive mode for times when you'd like to include yourself in the picture. This is also a great mode to select if you're using an optional remote control. You'll want to use a tripod when you're using this drive mode. The 2-second self-timer remote drive mode will take the picture 2 seconds after the shutter button is pressed completely. This is a good mode to use when you're taking pictures at very slow shutter speeds and you'd like to minimize camera shake. The Canon 70D has 2 great features that you can use to capture great photos and amazing HD video. Let's discuss the camera's live view and movie modes. Please note that it's important to avoid directing the camera's lens toward the sun in live view and movie modes, as this can seriously damage the camera's internal components. To shoot in live view, simply rotate the live view movie shooting switch to live view and then press the start-stop button. In live view, you can take a picture by pressing the shutter button, or you can use the touch shutter feature, which will allow you to focus and take the picture simply by tapping the screen. To enable or disable the touch shutter feature, simply tap the touch shutter icon at the bottom corner of the screen. Before you start taking pictures in live view, you'll want to understand the live view autofocus methods. In live view, there are 4 different AF methods to choose from: face tracking, Flexi-Zone multi, Flexi-Zone single, and quick mode. When the camera is using the face tracking or either of the Flexi-Zone modes, focus will take a little longer than in quick mode. To choose the AF method in live view, simply press the quick control button and select the AF method setting. Here you can choose from any of the 4 live view AF methods. The first AF method is face tracking. In this mode, the camera will find and focus on human faces in the scene. If a face that the camera is focusing on moves, the AF area will track the face to maintain focus. If multiple faces are detected, you can use the multi-controller or touchscreen to select the face you would like the camera to focus on. If the camera does not detect any faces in the scene, it will automatically switch to the Flexi-Zone Multi-AF method. To focus, press the shutter button halfway down. The AF point will turn green and a beep will sound. Then simply press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture. The next AF method in live view is Flexi-Zone Multi. In this mode, you can choose to have the camera use a wide area, or you can select one of 9 AF zones. To toggle between wide area and zone, press the Set button or the Erase button. When the wide area is used, the camera will automatically focus using one or several of the 31 AF points when the shutter button is pressed halfway. If the camera does not focus on the desired subject, you can use one of the 9 zones. When zone is selected, you can use either the multi-controller or touchscreen to select the desired zone. When one of the zones is selected, the camera will automatically use only the AF points that are in the selected zone for focus. Again, press the shutter button halfway. When the AF points appear in green and the beep sounds, press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture. The next AF method is Flexi-Zone Single. With this mode, a single AF point is used to focus on the subject, which makes it easy to focus exactly where you intended. You can use the multi-controller or touchscreen to place the AF point anywhere on the screen. Then simply press the shutter button halfway down, and when the AF point turns green, press it the rest of the way to take the picture. The last AF method is quick mode. In this mode, a dedicated AF sensor is used to achieve focus, making autofocus faster than in other modes. The 9 small boxes over the scene are this mode's AF points, which can be selected automatically by the camera, or you can select the one that you'd like to use manually. You can select the camera's AF area selection mode by pressing the AF area selection mode button. Use the touch screen or press the button again to toggle between the options. There are 3 AF area selection modes with the AF quick mode. First, there is the manual selection mode, where you can choose any one of the 19 AF points. To choose an AF point in this mode, use the multi-controller or touchscreen. The next AF area selection mode is Manual Zone Selection AF. When this mode is selected, you can simply select one of the zones using the multi-controller, and the camera will automatically choose the AF point or points from that zone. The last AF area selection mode is 19-point automatic selection AF. In this mode, the camera will automatically select one of the AF points to use for autofocus. Again, simply press the shutter button halfway and the AF point will turn green. Then press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture. The 70D has a great feature to help you get great focus when using manual focus in live view. You can use the camera's magnified view to see the exact area you're focusing on. Here's how to use the magnified view with manual focus in live view. First, frame the image on the LCD monitor. Then set the focus switch on the lens to MF. Now you can press the magnified view, or you can touch the magnified view icon on the touch screen. Pressing the button once will activate the magnified view. Pressing the button a second time will zoom to 5 times. And pressing the button a third time will zoom 10 times. Use the multi-controller to scroll to the area that you'd like to be in focus. Rotate the focus ring on the lens until the magnified area is in sharp focus. Then press the shutter button completely to take the picture. When you're finished using manual focus, you'll want to set the switch on the lens back to AF. In the default live view screen, several important shooting settings are displayed on screen in the live view shooting functions display. Note that the items displayed will vary depending on the shooting mode you have selected. We'll be showing the information that is displayed when the camera is set to manual mode. Here you'll see the touch shutter icon, the shutter speed, the aperture, the exposure scale, the ISO setting, and the magnified view icon. At the top of the screen, you'll see the possible shots, the maximum burst, the battery check, and the quick control icon. To show another shooting functions display, press the info button. In addition to the settings that were previously displayed, you'll see the shooting mode, the AF mode, the drive mode, the metering mode, the image recording quality, the white balance setting, the picture style, the auto lighting optimizer setting, and the creative filter. Pressing the info button again will display a real-time histogram of the scene to help you monitor the overall exposure. Pressing the info button once more will display a digital electronic level, and pressing the info button again will remove all of the icons from the display. In live view, you can access the quick control screen to change a variety of shooting settings. To access the quick control screen, press the quick control button or tap the quick control icon. You can use the multi-controller or touchscreen to make selections. In addition to live view, your 70D is also capable of shooting high-quality HD video. To use the camera's movie mode, rotate the live view movie shooting switch to movie. When shooting movies, use an SD Speed Class 6 memory card or higher. If a slower memory card is used, the movie may not be properly recorded. While shooting movies or in live view, be sure that you do not point the lens directly into the sun, as it may damage the camera's components. To access the camera's movie recording settings, first make sure that the live view movie recording switch is set to movie. Then enter the camera's menu system and navigate to the second movie menu. Here, select the movie recording size option. Just like capturing still photos, you can set the camera to record video at different resolutions or recording sizes. The 70D has 3 resolution settings: 1920 by 1080, 1280 by 720, and 640 by 480. Each of these recording sizes have different frame rate and compression method options. Choosing one of the 4 options on the left, 1920 by 1080, will allow you to capture full HD video. Use this when you want the highest resolution video the camera is capable of recording. The top 2 options on the right side of the screen, 1280 by 720, are good options when you want to have high quality video, but it doesn't need to be full HD. The 1280 by 720 recording size could be used for family home movies or similar scenarios. The bottom option on the right side of the screen is 640 by 480. This is a lower resolution setting that is good for when you know you only want to use the movie for emailing or posting online. Choosing 24 frames per second will closely imitate the look that you would get if you were using a film video camera. 30 frames per second is more like what you would see on television. 60 frames per second is a good option for recording fast action video. In addition to movie recording size and frame rate, there are 2 different compression options on the 70D, IPB and All-I. The IPB compression method will compress multiple frames at once for more efficient recording and smaller file sizes. The All-I method will compress the frames one at a time for a movie file that is more suited for editing, but will also be a larger file. The purpose or use of the finished video will help you decide which recording size, frame rate, and compression method to use. Keep in mind that the higher the resolution, the larger the file sizes will be. Now that we've discussed movie recording size options, let's talk about how to actually record movies with the 70D. First, you'll need to select the shooting mode. If the mode dial is set to any mode except manual, the camera will automatically set the exposure for movie recording. In manual mode, you will have access to the same exposure controls for shutter speed, aperture, and ISO as you do in still shooting. When shooting movies with moving subjects, it's a good idea to keep the shutter speed in a range of 1/30th of a second to 1/125th of a second. If you use a faster shutter speed, the motion will not appear as smooth. Make sure the Live View Movie Shooting switch is set to Movie. Then focus using the methods we've discussed in the Live View Shooting section of this guide. And to start recording, press the Start/Stop button. While the movie is recording, the Recording Movie icon will be displayed on the top corner of the screen. If you'd like to shoot a still image while recording a movie, simply press the shutter button completely. The movie file will have a still moment that will last about 1 second at the time the still image was taken. To end recording, press the Movie Shooting button again. Your movie files will be saved as MOV files. To view a movie that you have recorded, press the Playback button, and if necessary, use the multi-controller to find the movie you'd like to play. Press the Set button to enter the playback mode, and press the Set button again to play the movie. You can control the volume of the sound that is played back with the main dial. With the 70D, you have the ability to edit movies within the movie playback. At the point that you'd like to have your clip start or end, press the Set button to pause the movie. Then use the touch screen or multi-controller to select Edit from the playback mode options. Here you can select Cut Beginning or Cut End. Press Set. Now you can use the multi-controller to fast forward or rewind the movie. The portion of your movie that is shown in gray in the playback position bar is what will remain. Press Set and select Save. Here you can choose New File, Overwrite, or Cancel. We'll select New File. Press Set and select OK. Note that selecting Overwrite will erase the original movie and replace it with the edited version. To record sound in movie mode, the 70D has a built-in microphone, which will record sound automatically by default. If you'd like to change the microphone's sensitivity or turn off sound recording, you can do this through the camera's menu system. Enter the camera's second movie menu and select Sound Recording. Here you can select Auto, Manual, or Disable. If you select Manual, you can adjust the recording level to suit your needs. You can also choose whether or not you'd like the wind filter or attenuator to be enabled. If you're shooting movies outdoors in windy conditions, enabling the filter will reduce the noise caused by wind. If there is no wind or you're shooting indoors, you'll want to disable the filter, as the sound will be more natural than it would be if the filter was enabled. When enabled, the attenuator will reduce sound distortion when audio recording. When you're using the movie mode, the shooting functions display will appear much the same as it does for Live View. The only differences are the Servo AF icon at the bottom of the screen and the timecode at the top of the screen. The Servo AF icon indicates whether or not the camera is using Movie Servo AF. When enabled, Movie Servo AF will allow you to record a movie while continuously focusing on the subject. A unique feature on the 70D is Video Snapshot. This feature allows you to create a series of short 2, 4, or 8-second video clips and then save them into an album on the memory card. The clips in the Video Snapshot album can be combined to create an interesting and creative short movie. Let's take a look at the Video Snapshot feature on the 70D. First, we'll need to make sure the feature is enabled using the camera's menu system. We'll navigate to the second movie shooting menu and select Video Snapshot. Here, we'll select Enable. Now, we'll select Album Settings. We'll want to create a new album. And here, we can select the snapshot length. Now, we'll select OK. To create the first video snapshot, we'll press the shutter button halfway to focus, and then press the movie shooting button to begin recording. When the snapshot has finished recording, the camera will prompt you with options to save as an album, play back the snapshot, and do not save as album. Select Save as Album. The camera will return to the movie shooting screen, and you can record the next snapshot. Now the options are Add to Album, Save as New Album, Playback Video Snapshot, and Delete without saving to album. We'll select Add to Album. You can shoot up to 8 video snapshots to be combined into an album. To playback or edit an album, press the playback button and use the multi-controller to select the album to play back. Playing back and editing albums is done in the same way as playing and editing normal movie files. The 70D has a large LCD monitor where you can review images, adjust menu settings, and access the quick control screen. There are many options available for previewing images, and many of the camera's settings can easily be accessed through the quick control screen. Let's discuss how to use these camera features. For basic playback of your images on the camera's LCD monitor, simply press the playback button. To scroll through the images, you can use the multi-controller or you can swipe the touch screen. To quickly scroll through the images, rotate the quick control dial. If you'd like to jump forward or backward 10 images, you can rotate the main dial. You can change the jump function of the main dial in the camera's playback menu. If you have a large number of images recorded on the memory card, you may find that it's faster to find the photos that you would like if you display multiple photos on the screen at once. To do this, you can press the Image Index Reduce button, or you can pinch the image on the screen. 4 images will be displayed on the monitor. You can press the Image Index Reduce button or pinch the screen again to display 9 images. You can use the multi-controller or touch screen to scroll through the images, and you can press the Set button for a full screen view of an image. As discussed, you can also magnify images on the LCD monitor. This is especially useful when you want to check for good focus in detail areas of the photo. You can press the Magnify button, or you can spread 2 fingers across the touch screen to zoom the image. You can press the Magnify button multiple times to increase the level of zoom. Then you can use the multi-controller to scroll top to bottom and side to side on the photo. If you rotate the quick control dial, you can scroll through the images on the card at the same level of magnification. As you're scrolling through photos in the camera's playback, you may find some images that you'd like to protect from being accidentally erased. To protect an image, press the quick control button and select the Protect icon and Enable. A small Protect icon will appear on the top of the image. When you're finished, press the quick control button to exit the screen. If you find a photo that didn't turn out, you can remove it from your memory card by pressing the Erase button. When the dialog appears, select Erase and press Set, and the image will be removed from the memory card. Note that once an image is erased, it cannot be recovered. You can also rotate your images for viewing on the LCD monitor and computer. To do this, press the quick control button and select the Rotate Image option. Here you can choose whether to rotate the image left or right. Another useful playback feature in the quick control screen is image rating. With this feature, you can assign star ratings to images and movies on the memory card. You can apply one of 5 different star ratings to your images, which is helpful when you're sorting them for printing, archiving, and deleting. Also in the quick control screen, you can apply creative filters to your photos. You can choose from 7 different options. First, there is grainy black and white, which will convert your photo to black and white and give you 3 levels of control for contrast of the photo. After you've made your selections, you can press Set and select OK when the camera asks you if you want to save the edited photo as a new file. The next creative filter is Soft Focus. This filter will give the image a soft look, and it also has 3 different levels of effect for you to choose from. After you've adjusted the image to your liking, you can save it as a different file on the memory card. The third creative filter is the Fisheye filter. Applying this filter to an image will mimic the effect of a fisheye lens. You can adjust the level of distortion you'd like the image to have and save it as a separate file. Next, there is Art Bold. The Art Bold filter will create an image that is vibrant and will make the image appear three-dimensional with the look of an oil painting. Again, you can choose the level of effect you'd like and save it as a new file. Next, there is the Water Painting Effect filter, which will give the image the look of a watercolor painting with soft colors. There are 3 levels of color density to choose from. Next is the Toy Camera filter. This filter mimics the effect of toy cameras. It will give an image an aged color tone of your choice, and it will darken the edges of the image. The last filter is the miniature effect. This filter will give the image the look of a diorama, where only a specific area of the frame is in focus. You can adjust the in-focus area with the multi-controller, and you can change the orientation of the in-focus area by pressing the Info button. The next option in the Playback Quick Control screen is Resize, where you can create a smaller copy of an image and save it to the memory card. On the right side of the Playback Quick Control screen, the first icon will allow you to exit the Quick Control screen and resume normal playback. Next, there is the Highlight Alert option. When enabled, Highlight Alert will cause the very overexposed areas in an image to blink in black. The next option is AF Point Display, which will allow you to display the AF points that were used when the image was taken. The next icon is the Image Jump setting. By default, the Image Jump feature will jump 10 images when the main dial is rotated in playback mode. With this option, you can change the function of the Image Jump feature. You can choose from 1 by 1, jump 10 images, jump 100 images, display by date, display by folder, display movies only, display stills only, and display by image rating. Now let's take a look at the different playback displays on the 70D. The first playback screen is the No Information screen and is simply a full screen display of the image. Additional information about the image can be viewed by pressing the Info button. Each time the Info button is pressed, a different set of information will be displayed. The next display option is the Basic Information display. Here you can see the shutter speed, aperture, the folder number, and file number. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the image number out of the total number of images. Pressing the Info button again will show the Shooting Information display. In addition to the information that was shown in the Basic Info display, you'll see the histogram of the image, which gives a basic idea of the tone distribution of the image. If the histogram data is shifted toward the left side of the graph, the image will probably be dark or underexposed. If the histogram is shifted to the right side of the graph, the image will be too bright or overexposed. In most cases, a properly exposed photo will have the data distributed over the whole graph. The histogram will help you have a basic idea of the overall exposure of your image when you're outdoors in bright sun and the photos are difficult to see on the LCD monitor. In the Shooting Information display, you'll also see the shooting mode, metering mode, the ISO setting, the white balance, the picture style, the image recording quality, the file size, the color space, and the date and time the image was recorded. Also within the Shooting Information playback, you may notice areas of the image that blink in black. These areas are overexposed and have lost detail. Pressing the Info button again will show the histogram display where you can see the brightness histogram as well as histograms for each of the red, green, and blue color channels. Here you can see the areas in any of the individual channels that are shifted to the left showing the dark tones in that channel, or shifted to the right, showing the lighter tones in that color channel. If any of the channels have distribution that is shifted too far to the right, that color channel will be oversaturated and show little or no detail. If any of the channels have distribution that is shifted too far to the left, that channel will lack color information. Let's discuss the focus modes that are available on the 70D. When you're choosing the focus mode, the main thing that you'll want to think about is whether or not the subject is in motion. The Canon 70D has a sophisticated autofocus system with a variety of autofocus modes and AF area selection modes that, when used well together, will help you get great focus regardless of what type of subject you're photographing. Understanding how all of the modes and areas work together might seem a little confusing, but this chapter of the guide will help you know when to use each autofocus mode as well as each autofocus area mode. Let's first discuss the camera's three autofocus modes: one-shot, AI focus, or AI servo. To choose an autofocus mode on the 70D, press the AF button and then rotate the main dial while watching the LCD panel or monitor. Another way to select the AF mode on the 70D is through the Quick Control screen. Press the Quick Control button and use the multi-controller to navigate to the AF mode setting. Here you can use the Quick Control dial to scroll through the options. The first focus mode is one-shot and is best suited for stationary subjects. Choose this mode when you're photographing objects or when you're doing portrait work with an older child or adult. When focus is achieved, the AF point which achieved focus will flash in red, and the focus confirmation light in the viewfinder will also light. The AI Servo AF mode is best for shooting moving subjects and is for use when the focusing distance keeps changing. Use this mode when you're photographing sporting events, small children, or animals. While you hold the shutter button halfway, the subject will be focused continuously. When the AF point selection is automatic, the camera first uses the center AF point to focus. During autofocusing, if the subject moves away from the center AF point, focus tracking continues as long as the subject is covered by another AF point. In the AI focus mode, the focus mode automatically switches from one-shot AF to AI servo if the still subject starts moving. After the subject is focused in the one-shot AF mode, if the subject starts moving, the camera will detect the movement and will change the AF mode automatically to AI servo. The last of the focusing modes is the manual focus, or MF mode. To use the camera's manual focus, simply switch the focus mode switch on the lens to MF. This gives you the control to manually focus on any subject through the viewfinder by using the focus ring. Before we begin discussing the autofocus area selection modes, please note that autofocus modes and autofocus area selection modes are different settings but function together. Understanding how they work together will help your images have great focus. There are three AF area selection modes: manual selection 1 point, manual selection zone AF, and auto selection. To choose the AF area selection mode, press the Quick Control button and navigate to the AF area selection. Press Set to view the options. Press the AF area selection button to toggle through the options. The manual AF area selection mode is great for when you want to manually select and focus on a small area, such as the subject's eye or another small object. With this mode, you'll select one of the camera's 19 focus points that you'd like to use. With the Zone AF area selection mode, the 19 AF points are divided into sections or zones. All of the points in the selected zone are used for autofocus, and the camera will focus on the nearest subject within the selected zone. This is a good mode to use for moving subjects, but since the camera automatically focuses on the nearest subject, it may be more difficult to focus on a very specific subject. The last AF area selection mode is Auto AF Point Selection. In this mode, all 19 AF points will be used for autofocus. The way that this mode works depends on the AF mode that you have selected. If you're using one-shot AF, the camera will use the AF point that is over the nearest subject. If you're using AI Servo AF, you'll select the starting AF points, and if the subject moves away from the point, the camera will automatically use other AF points to track the subject. Sometimes a photo may have poor focus, but it's not related to the camera's focus mode or focus area mode. Camera shake happens when the camera moves while the shutter is open. This exposes the image sensor while the camera is moving and results in blurry images. Always try to steady the camera. Holding it with two hands and pressing the viewfinder gently against your face will help. You can also lean against something or use a tripod, a monopod, or even a beanbag to steady the camera. You can also reduce the effect of camera shake by selecting a fast shutter speed. This reduces the amount of time the image sensor is exposed to shaky conditions. A helpful rule of thumb is to set your shutter speed to 1 over the focal length. Confusing? Let me explain. If the focal length on your lens is 300 millimeters, for example, you should set your shutter speed to at least 1/300th of a second. If the focal length is 30 millimeters, you might get by using a shutter speed as low as 1/30th of a second. Let's take a look at the 70D's sophisticated menu system. Depending on what shooting mode you're using, different menus and menu items will appear. We'll be showing the menu options that are available in the camera's creative zone modes. Many of these settings are discussed in greater detail in other chapters of this guide. We'll just look at an overview of the menu items in this chapter. The first 4 menu tabs are the shooting menus, indicated by their red color and the small camera icon. The shooting menus are where you'll find all of the settings that are related to the camera's operation while taking still photographs. Let's look at each of the shooting menu items. First, there is the image quality, where you can choose from a variety of image qualities and sizes. The next option is Viewfinder Grid Display, which will allow you to enable a grid in the viewfinder to assist in composition. The next option is Viewfinder Level. When enabled, the viewfinder level will use the exposure scale to indicate whether the camera is level. The next option allows you to enable or disable the beep sound that is heard when the camera focuses. The Release Shutter button without card option determines whether or not the camera will allow you to take a picture if there is not an SD memory card inserted. In the Image Review option, you can choose how long you'd like the image to be displayed on the LCD monitor immediately after it's taken. You can choose Off, the image will not be displayed at all, 2, 4, or 8 seconds. Or you can choose Hold. With the Hold option, the image will be displayed until the camera automatically goes into sleep mode. The second shooting menu begins with Lens Aberration Correction. This setting will allow you to adjust the settings for peripheral illumination correction as well as chromatic aberration correction. The peripheral illumination correction will reduce the vignetting effect that is caused by some lenses. The chromatic aberration correction will reduce the appearance of a color fringe around the edges of subjects in images. The Flash Control Function settings contain all of the settings for the camera's built-in flash unit, as well as settings for an optional external flash. The red eye reduction option enables or disables red eye reduction when the camera's flash is used. Next, there is the Mirror Lock-Up option, which will allow you to lock the mirror in the up position to reduce camera shake for very long exposures. The third shooting menu begins with the Exposure Compensation Bracketing setting. Here you can choose the increment you'd like the camera to use for exposure compensation and bracketing. Next is the ISO speed settings, where you can adjust the ISO speed range, and auto ISO range, and the minimum shutter speed for auto ISO. Next is the auto lighting optimizer setting, followed by the white balance setting. The custom white balance setting will allow you to create a custom white balance for optimal color in your images. The next option is the white balance shift bracketing setting. Here you can make adjustments to the white balance correction and white balance bracketing. This is the color space setting with 2 options, sRGB and Adobe RGB. Some photographers prefer the sRGB mode, as it requires less processing later. Other photographers prefer the Adobe RGB mode, as this mode has a wider range of colors, making it a preferred option for images that will be extensively processed on the computer. The fourth shooting menu begins with the picture style setting. Here you can choose from 7 preset picture style settings, with 3 user-defined picture style settings. Next, there is long exposure noise reduction, which will allow you to choose how you'd like the camera to handle noise reduction for long exposures. High ISO speed noise reduction is where you can choose the level of noise reduction for high ISO settings, as well as access the multi-shot noise reduction option. Next, there is highlight tone priority. When enabled, highlight tone priority will help preserve detail and highlight areas of the image. Next, there is the dust delete data setting. Using this setting combined with the software that was included with your camera will automatically remove any dust spots on the image sensor from your images. The multiple exposure option will allow you to create multiple exposure images in camera, and the HDR mode will allow you to create stunning HDR images in camera. The next 2 menus are the Live View Shooting menus. The first Live View Shooting menu begins with the Live View Shooting option. Here you can choose to have Live View Shooting enabled or disabled. The next menu option is the Live View Autofocus method, followed by the Continuous AF option. When enabled, Continuous AF will continuously focus while the camera is in live view. The next menu item is Touch Shutter, which will allow you to simply tap the screen to focus and take the picture in live view. Next, there is Grid Display. With the Grid Display, you can have a grid shown on the camera's LCD monitor while in live view. This can be a useful tool for creating interesting compositions and for making sure that the horizon line is straight. The next menu option is the aspect ratio. You can choose from 3:2, 4:3, 16:9, and 1:1. If you're planning on printing 4:6 photos, you'll want to leave this setting on its default, 3:2. The last menu item is Exposure Simulation, which will allow you to display a simulation of how the actual image brightness will appear in the final image. The second Live View Shooting menu begins with Silent Live View Shooting. With this option, you can choose Mode 1, Mode 2, or Disable. When Mode 1 is selected, the shooting operation will be much quieter than normal, and the high-speed continuous drive mode can still be used. When Mode 2 is selected, only one shot will be taken when the shutter button is pressed, and holding the shutter button down will suspend the camera's operation, making it possible to keep the camera silent for a period of time in very quiet surroundings. The Disable function is for use with specialty TSE lenses to assure proper exposure. The other item in the second Live View Shooting menu is Metering Timer, which will allow you to select the length of time you'd like the camera's exposure setting to be displayed. Now let's take a look at the camera's playback menus, indicated by their blue color and the small play button icon. In the first playback menu, the first 3 options are for protecting photos, rotating photos, and erasing photos. Next, there is an option for choosing the print order of images if you're connecting the camera to a compatible printer. The next menu item is Photo Book Setup. With this option, you can select images to be copied to a specific folder on your computer using the supplied software. This makes it easier to create and print a photo book. The next menu option is for the creative filters, where you can choose to have one of 7 filter effects applied to a photo. And finally, there is the raw image processing option, where you can convert a raw file to a JPEG and save it to the camera's memory card. In the second playback menu, the resize option will allow you to save a smaller version of an image to the memory card. Next, there is the rating option, which will allow you to assign a star rating to your photos. With the slideshow setting, you can choose to have the images on your memory card played as a slideshow. This feature is especially useful when the camera is connected to a TV. The next menu item is the image jump, where you can choose one of 8 options for scrolling through your photos on the LCD monitor. The third playback menu starts with the Highlight Alert option, where you can choose to have the camera warn you when areas of the image are too bright and have lost detail. The AF point display setting will allow you to choose whether or not you'd like the AF point that achieved focus to be displayed on the image during playback. Next, there is Playback Grid, which will allow you to display a framing grid over images in playback. Under histogram display, you can choose to have either the brightness histogram or the RGB histogram displayed in image playback. With Movie Play Count, you can choose to display either the recording time or the time code during movie playback. And Control over HDMI will allow you to use a compatible TV's remote control to control playback operations when the camera is connected via an HDMI cable. The 4 setup menu tabs have important settings for the basic operation and function of the camera. The first menu option in the first setup menu is the Select Folder option, where you can create and select a specific folder for your images to be saved on the memory card. The next menu item is File Numbering. With this menu item, you can choose how you'd like the image files to be numbered when the memory card is replaced or formatted. The Auto Rotate option will allow you to have vertical images automatically rotate on the LCD monitor and computer screen for easy viewing. The last menu item in this menu is Format Card, which allows you to format the camera's memory card. The second setup menu begins with Auto Power Off, where you can choose how long you want the camera to be idle before automatically powering off. You can choose from 7 different options. Next, there is the LCD brightness option. Here you can choose from one of 7 different brightness levels for the LCD monitor. The next menu item is the LCD monitor on-off. With this option, you can choose whether or not to have the shooting function screen displayed when the shutter button is pressed halfway. The next 2 items allow you to set the camera's date, time, time zone, and the language for menus and displays. And GPS device settings allow you to set up the camera for use with an optional GPS unit. The third setup menu begins with Video System, where you can choose whether your movie files will be recorded in NTSC or PAL. If you're in the United States, you'll want to choose NTSC. Next, there is Feature Guide. When enabled, the Feature Guide will provide a description of the selected setting or option on the shooting functions display or in live view. The touch control setting will allow you to select the sensitivity or disable the touchscreen function of the LCD monitor. Next, there is the info button display options, where you can choose which information is displayed on the LCD when the info button is pressed. Next, there is Wi-Fi. When enabled and used in conjunction with a compatible memory card and wireless network, this feature on the 70D will allow you to do a wide range of tasks wirelessly, including transferring, printing, and saving images. Next, there is Wi-Fi function, which will allow you to configure the camera to communicate with your wireless network. The fourth setup menu begins with Sensor Cleaning, which will allow you to select the times when you'd like to automatically clean the image sensor. Next, there is Battery Info, where you can view information about the battery life. Next, there is Certification Logo Display, which will display some of the camera's certifications. The Custom Shooting Mode option is where you can register or clear settings for the camera's C1 and C2 modes. Clear All Camera Settings will allow you to restore the camera to factory default settings. Next, there is the Copyright Information setting. With this setting, you can enter your own copyright information, which will be part of the image data for every photo that you take. The last menu item is the Firmware version, which will allow you to update the camera's firmware. The next menu is the Custom Functions menu, which will allow you to customize the functions of many of the camera's buttons and controls. You can customize functions for exposure, autofocus, operation, and you can clear all custom function settings to restore the custom functions to factory default. The final menu is My Menu, indicated by the green color and the small star icon. With this menu, you can save frequently used menu items so you can find them quickly and easily. To register a menu item to the My Menu, select My Menu Settings, then Register to My Menu, and scroll to the menu item that you'd like to add, press Set to select the menu item, highlight OK, and press Set again to save the item to My Menu. Press the menu button twice to return to the My Menu, and you'll see the items that you registered listed in the options. Let's discuss white balance. It's important to understand that the quality of your pictures is affected by the color of the surrounding light and how the camera's electronics process that light. Compensating for varying light conditions is referred to as setting the white balance. Most light looks white to an untrained eye, but it can be composed of a range of different colors. The color of sunlight is different in daylight, in the shade, or in cloudy conditions. Daylight, for example, is fairly blue and fluorescent light is fairly green. If your camera is set to shoot in daylight, but you're shooting in a setting with fluorescent light, your image will look overly red. Proper camera white balance takes into account the color temperature of a light source, which refers to the relative warmth or coolness of white light. Human eyes are very good at judging what is white under different light sources. However, digital cameras often have difficulty determining auto white balance. Incorrect white balance can create unattractive blue, orange, or even green colors in your photos. The white balance scale is expressed in measurements of Kelvin. The higher color temperatures, measured in the area of 5600 Kelvin to 7500 Kelvin, represent situations like a sunlit or cloudy day. These shooting situations have a greater amount of blue tones and a lesser amount of red tones. Lower color temperature situations are measured in the area of 3500 Kelvin down to 1900 Kelvin and are found in lighting situations like standard lighting from a fluorescent light bulb or a tungsten light bulb or candlelight. These types of shooting situations are found on the lower end of the spectrum and produce greater amounts of red tones and lesser amounts of blue tones. Once you get acquainted with the camera's white balance settings, you can try setting your own using the camera's custom white balance feature. To use this tool effectively, you'll want to be familiar with the color temperature that is most effective for your shooting situation. Again, most light looks white to an untrained eye. Setting your white balance will help your pictures have the proper coloring. If natural-looking colors cannot be obtained with auto white balance, you can select one of the other white balance settings to suit the respective light source. To access the white balance settings, press the Quick Control button and select White Balance on the Quick Control screen. Here you can select the option you'd like. The first option is Auto White Balance. With this setting, the camera will attempt to automatically adjust the color temperature. The next white balance setting is Daylight. Daylight is a great setting for taking pictures in the sunlight. This setting is marked with a sun icon. The Shade setting is for taking pictures in the shade. It reduces the bluish tones in a picture. This setting is marked by an icon of a house with shade. Use the Cloudy setting when taking pictures on days that are overcast. This is marked with a cloud icon. The next white balance setting is Tungsten Light. This is a good setting when taking pictures under common light bulbs. It reduces the reddish tones in a picture. This setting is marked with a light bulb icon. The white fluorescent light setting is great for taking pictures under common fluorescent lighting. The next setting is the Flash setting. Use this setting when using the built-in flash or an external flash unit. The next icon is the Custom White Balance option. Use this setting when you want to manually set the white balance for a specific light source for the best accuracy. The last option is Color Temperature. Use this setting when you know the color temperature of the light you're shooting under. To select the color temperature, simply rotate the main dial. Let's walk through setting a custom white balance on the 70D. First, you'll need to take a picture of a plain white object in the lighting that you're shooting under. You can use a white card or an object like a shirt or a piece of paper to achieve good results. Now you'll need to set that image as the custom white balance reference. This is done in the menu system under the third shooting menu. Here, select Custom White Balance and select the photo of the white or gray object. Press Set and select OK. Then press Set again to confirm the custom white balance setting. With the 70D, you can fine-tune any of the white balance settings to give the same effect that you would get from a color compensating filter. To do this, select White Balance Shift Bracket in the Quick Control screen. Now you can use the multi-controller to position the cursor in the grid. Placing the cursor toward the A will increase the amber in the image. Placing the cursor toward the G will increase the green in the image. Placing the cursor toward the B will increase the blue in the image, and placing the cursor toward the M will increase the magenta in the image. In addition to white balance, there are 3 other features on your 70D that can improve the quality of your images: ambient settings, picture styles, and the auto lighting optimizer. Let's first discuss ambient settings. These settings are available in most of the basic zone modes, and they will allow you to adjust and enhance the color, contrast, and sharpness. To make adjustments to an ambient setting, make sure that the camera is set to any of the basic zone modes except Scene Intelligent Auto, Flash Off, or HDR Backlight. Then press the Quick Control button to access the Quick Control screen. The top option is where you can select ambient settings. There are 9 different options. First, there is the standard setting. When this setting is selected, only the characteristics of that specific shooting mode will be applied. Next, there is the vivid setting, which will make the image more sharp and vivid. For all of the ambient settings except standard, you can adjust the intensity of the effect. You can select low, standard, or strong. Next, there is the soft setting, which will make the subject look softer. This is a good setting for portraits, pets, and flowers. Next, there is the warm setting, which will make the image appear softer with warmer colors. Next, there is the intense setting, which will decrease the overall brightness. This will help the subject to be more emphasized. Next, there is the cool setting. With this setting, the overall brightness is slightly decreased and the image will have a cool color cast. Next, there is the brighter setting. This setting will simply increase the brightness of the image. Next, there is the darker setting, which will simply decrease the brightness of the image. The last ambient setting is monochrome, which will allow you to take pictures in black and white, sepia, or blue tone. Picture styles are an intuitive way for you to tell the camera what levels of sharpness, contrast, saturation, and color tone you'd like for your specific shooting scenario. Note that the picture styles are only available when the camera is set to one of the creative zone modes. There are 7 different preset picture styles, and you can make adjustments to settings in each of them. To access the picture styles, press the Quick Control button and select the Picture Style icon. Then use the multi-controller, Quick Control dial, main dial, or touch screen to make your selection. First, there is the Auto Picture Style. This is a good general use picture style. The camera will automatically adjust color tone to fit the scene that you're photographing. This is a good picture style for photos of greenery, nature, outdoor, and sunset scenes. The standard picture style is also a good general use picture style and is suitable for most scenes. Images with this picture style will look vivid, sharp, and crisp. The portrait picture style is great for photos of people, particularly close-ups. It offers pleasant skin tones and makes the image appear a little softer. The landscape picture style is good for taking pictures of scenery outdoors. This picture style makes the greens and blues in the image more vivid. The neutral picture style is a good setting to choose if you wish to process your images with your computer. Colors in this picture style are natural and subdued. The faithful picture style is also a good setting to choose if you're processing the images with your computer. When shooting under normal daylight, the color is adjusted to match the subject's color. The overall image is dull and subdued. The monochrome picture style is useful when you would like to take black and white photographs. Note, unless you're shooting in RAW, images taken in this setting cannot be converted to color later. All of these picture styles are fully customizable. Select a picture style that you'd like to customize and press the Info button. You can make changes to the sharpness, contrast, saturation, and color tone. Select a parameter that you'd like to make adjustments to, and then press Set. Now use the multi-controller to adjust the setting. Press Set to confirm the adjustment. In addition to the 7 preset picture styles, there are also 3 user-defined picture style options. These options allow you to select and adjust a picture style to your liking and save it for future use. Registering a user-defined picture style is very similar to customizing a picture style, but with a few minor changes. First, select the user-defined picture style and press the Info button. Press Set to choose a base picture style. Now, use the Set button and multi-controller to make adjustments to any of the parameters. When you're finished, press Menu to return to the picture style options. Now let's discuss the 70D's Auto Lighting Optimizer. With this feature, you can improve contrast and detail and shadow areas of your photo automatically when the camera is set to one of the creative zone modes. You can access the Auto Lighting Optimizer in the Quick Control screen. Press the Quick Control button and select the Auto Lighting Optimizer setting. Here you can select Disable, Low, Standard, or High. If you choose Low, some shadow areas will be improved, and if you select High, most of the shadow areas will be improved. Images may have increased noise with this feature depending on the scenario. Note that if you're using exposure compensation to darken the image while the Auto Lighting Optimizer is active, the exposure compensation may not work as intended, and you may need to disable the Auto Lighting Optimizer. Your 70D has a powerful built-in flash that can provide you with extra light in certain shooting scenarios. As a general rule, you'll want to keep your subject within about 3.5 to 20 feet for the best results. To use the built-in flash in the creative zone modes, simply press the flash button and the flash will pop up. In the basic zone modes, the built-in flash will pop up and fire automatically in low light or backlight conditions. In flash off mode, landscape mode, sports mode, and HDR backlight mode, the flash will not fire. If you're using the flash and you find that the image is too bright or too dark, you can use flash exposure compensation to make adjustments. To set the flash exposure compensation, press the Quick Control button and use the multi-controller to select the flash exposure compensation icon and press Set. Now you can rotate the main dial to the right or left to adjust the intensity of the flash. If you move the indicator toward the minus side of the scale, the flash will produce less light. If you move the indicator toward the plus side of the scale, the flash will produce more light. Now press the shutter button halfway to exit the screen. Now simply take the picture. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about your Canon 70D. We know this new information will give you enough confidence and know-how to get the most out of your camera. Remember, you can refer back to any section of this guide at any time. Just select the topics that you would like to review from the main menu. Watch for more QuickPro guides on newly released cameras. Thanks for watching.